Hey guys, Michael Furlonger here for Job Part 2 on depression. If you remember last week, I talked about Job. He lost everything. And it ends with Job's wife says, "Curse God and die." And Job says, "Why are you talking like a foolish woman? Should we not accept good from God and not trouble?" And it says, "In all this, Job did not sin." Following that, three of Job's friends show up to comfort him. For several days, they just sit in silence because they don't know what to say. Chapter 3, Job breaks the silence, and he says, "Cursed is the day of my birth." So it just goes on with this, and then in which verse is it? Verse 3:20 to 22, chapter 3, verse 20 to 22, it says, "Why is light given to those in misery, and life to the bitter of soul, to those who long for death that does not come, who search for it more than a hidden treasure, who are filled with gladness and rejoice when they reach the grave." And then verse 23, "Why is life given to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in?" So the question is Job cursing God? And the answer is no. He is acknowledging that his circumstances suck, but believes that God is in absolute control. So he's going on and he just keeps on complaining. Now, if you're reading this on your own, or you're doing a little Bible study or something, read through Job and mark down every time Job talks about himself, curses himself or the circumstances, when he talks about God, and when he talks about Jesus Christ. And I'm like, here's like, Michael, that's Old Testament. I'm like, he talks about him. Trust me, we'll go on. So for the next 35 chapters or so, Job's friends are telling him to repent. They believe that his circumstances are strictly because he did something wrong. And Job doesn't know how to respond to that. But he keeps on crying out to God and crying out to Jesus, not in name, but in action. Chapter 19, Job is on this woe is me. And verse 25, 27, he says, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth. And after my skin has destroyed me, yet in my flesh I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes, I and none another. How my heart yearns within me." And then, now this is what Eliphaz, one of Job's friends, says in chapter 2. "Submit to God and be at peace with him. In this way, prosperity will come to you." And this is where a lot of churches kind of go with things. They think that, well, obviously, if you are prosperous, God has favored you and he loves you. And if you're like me and you're dealing with depression, for whatever the reason, or medical reason, whatever it is, it's not always so much like that. And I'll share that in another one. But just saying that there is no magical prayer or magical sermon that you can say for your depression. But I personally, I like Job, I'm clinging to God that one day I know that my Redeemer will stand there and be between me and God, and I will speak to God. And now I don't know if in that time I will have the anger and the issues that I'm dealing with now, or I'll be so wrapped up in God's glory that I'll just forget all about it. But that's just where I am with my depression. I'm going to end this here. Remember to leave a comment below and tell me if this is helpful. I'll talk to you later. Bye now.